What's up everyone, Regina here with a brand new top 10 list. For over the last 3 months, I've been really enjoying the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, which is the remake of the first 3 Crash games. And while I play it, I always think about other games that came out on the original PlayStation that I'd like to see remade on this new gen of game consoles with stunning graphics and quality that Crash Remake has. So I thought that I'd like to share with you guys the top 10 PlayStation games that I'd like to see remade. And with Final Fantasy VII Remake and Resident Evil 2 Remake both currently in development, there's no better time than this to make this kind of video. I'd like to say that these aren't necessarily the best PS1 games, they're just games I think that really need a remake and would be a superb experience with the new graphics, and some of them could even be improved gameplay wise. Also, it's a shame that they might even be forgotten or not even known for many gamers. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started with our countdown. When all the people in the world were crazy about Metal Gear Solid, I was playing Siphon Filter. Sure, it's not that similar to Metal Gear Solid in terms of gameplay, it's not even that good, but it really is in terms of the setting and the soundtrack. Siphon Filter is an action-adventure shooter with a good amount of stealth segments. I guess in terms of gameplay, the closest modern game I can think of is Uncharted. Although it feels too different, it is in fact very similar since you walk, shoot, jump, climb and sneak sometimes. So I think the first 2 games are really something great and they deserve more credit, and I'd really like to see them in 1080p or 4K or whatever modern gaming has to offer. You know, it'd be really nice if it has similar mechanics to Days Gone, since it's being made by the same guys behind Siphon Filter. I really wanted to play Silent Hill in the top 5 games that need a remake, but then I've realized that it's still one of the most accessible games on this list and I wouldn't want any of the gameplay mechanics changed at all, especially the camera system. Don't you dare touch the camera system, Konami. So why the remake, you say? Well, to this day, even if you've played the game 5 times, it can still be very scary. Even if not that scary, at least creepy. If it was made with today's tech and maybe if some new puzzles were added like in Resident Evil Remake, I can guarantee you it will be the scariest game of the 8th gen. And don't give us that reimagining that you did with Shattered Memories. Never again, Konami. No one wants to play a fanfiction remake made by people who barely know what Silent Hill is. Throughout the years, I've kept hearing a lot about a game from Squaresoft called Vagrant Story. People kept asking for a remake for it, so I thought, meh, this game can't be any better than This and That by Squaresoft. So I've played the game to prove that what I've said is true, but I was proven wrong. This game is fantastic! From the dark, gritty ambience to the creepy dungeons with the insanely addictive battle system. I have to say that I still am in my first playthrough of this game, so I can't say too much about it without sounding like a noob. But one thing worth noting is that this game is rumored to be set in the same universe as Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy XII. So I guess a remake now would be more logical than ever, right? We all know that the original Metal Gear Solid is a perfect game inside out. To me, it still holds up quite well to this day. This game is just awesome, but if it had the gameplay and cutscene quality of Metal Gear Solid 3 or 4, with current gen graphics that could look even better than MGS5, since, you know, this isn't an open world game, it would certainly be the best game on current gen. I know, Metal Gear Solid has already got a remake called The Twin Snakes that was released in the year 2004 for the GameCube. And while The Twin Snakes was a solid remake that really gave the game graphics and gameplay that matched that of MGS2, they've seriously messed up by changing the entire soundtrack of the game instead of just remastering the original with newer quality. And even that remake is now 13 years old. So I guess we could use another one? If Konami is not good enough to make a remake now, I'd at least like the Twin Snakes to be remastered with the inclusion of the original soundtrack instead. Seriously, someone do something about that soundtrack. So we're getting a remake of Final Fantasy VII. Sure, the graphics of the original are definitely not nice anymore, but that game is addictive and it's a really great game that can make you get over the outdated graphics as soon as you try it. Sure, I'm so excited for the remake since it really would be on another level if remade and refined properly. But what truly needs a remake in my opinion is Final Fantasy VIII. Now Final Fantasy VIII is one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, and I really do admire the characters, the world, the soundtrack, and even the graphics. The graphics still look fantastic to this day, but in my opinion it really needs a remake to fix some things since the game really does have a good amount of things that could be fixed. Sure, it does need things like current gen graphics, voice acting, and a more modern camera system, but that isn't what it really does need. What it needs is to actually have that part where Rinoa is dangling on the seed ship and no one does anything to save her for hours, and she doesn't fall until hours later when Squall is ready to save her. Seriously, the game is littered with such cheesy things that really can ruin the mood for you. Aside from that, I think some things about the gameplay could be seriously tweaked, like the leveling system. The magic junction system could also be either simplified or explained better. I've played this game, but I still don't understand some things about its gameplay system. Aside from everything, I do think that Squall and his squad are truly some of the most underappreciated characters in the Final Fantasy community, and seeing them more in the spotlight could make me happier. Crash Bandicoot has been remade, and now everyone suddenly wants Spyro back too. Fun fact, Spyro is owned by Activision too, and the developers behind the Skylanders series are Vicarious Visions, aka the guys who developed the Crash remake. So the chances of a Spyro remake really are high now that everyone is demanding it. It really would be spectacular since Spyro games are quite non-linear in terms of gameplay, so I imagine it would be a huge trilogy to remaster. I haven't played a Spyro game in a very long time, and I am really sure that this remake is gonna happen, so I really can't wait to get my hands on it and play it since Spyro is one of my most favorite platformers. So, Dino Crisis. Where do I start? I'm gonna try to wrap this up quickly. So the first Dino Crisis game, it was directed by Shinji Mikami as a successor to the Resident Evil series. It has so many technical improvements over Resident Evil, so yeah. Now you can walk while aiming, a feature that was here in 1999 but didn't reach Resident Evil till 2012 in Resident Evil 6. The story starts great as you're introduced to an unbelievably stunning and gorgeous protagonist called Regina, who has a really great personality, but you are then disappointed when you start to realize that she doesn't have any backstory or even a last name. Oh, also, this game has dinosaurs and they're in a crisis. I want this game remade because I want them to add more to the story and fix the puzzles since they're so difficult and they have so many numbers you can almost call them broken. I can't believe that even I, the girl who adores survival horror puzzles, said that about this game. The puzzles just get so tedious, I can't even stress it enough. Also, give Regina Crisis some backstory in the remake. And a last name! Now, Dino Crisis 2. It's not trying to be a survival horror game anymore, which is a great thing, since the first game was always trapped in the shadows of Resident Evil. The first game was lacking in a way, but I could call the second one perfect for a PlayStation 1 game. It's now an action-adventure third-person shooter, which is in my opinion the best on the PlayStation 1 next to Metal Gear Solid. To this day, it's still easily one of the best action-adventure games I've ever played, so if you haven't played it yet, I would really recommend it. Again, Regina still doesn't get a backstory nor a last name. Such a waste! So that's one of the reasons I'd like a remake. But I guess for this game, my main reason for wanting a remake would be the graphics and the controls. Whenever I play Resident Evil 6, I imagine if Dino Crisis 2 had these kind of controls, camera and graphics. I mean, it is an action game, which is something that Resident Evil has always tried to be and failed. It's a waste not to have Dino Crisis revived just because one badly made game was bad. I honestly had no idea how great this game is until a friend and a very awesome YouTuber called Alpha Omega Sin has highly suggested it to me. By the way, this dude is rad, check him out. This game needs to be on the PlayStation 4. It's a seriously perfect game that was masterfully crafted. I am sure that I want it to remain a side-scroller in the remake, and I really do want to see it in 3D graphics, because the environments and the atmosphere of this game are really something. I don't even have nostalgia for this game. I've only played it for the first time like 3 years ago, and I was really addicted to it back then. I don't really prefer it over Rondo of Blood, but I'd say since Symphony is a much less linear game, it could be something really special. I'm not really specifying if I want to see it in third person or not. I myself can't exactly tell what I want. Even if it isn't specifically Symphony of the Night, any remake of a good Castlevania game on the PlayStation 4 with modern graphics and trophies would be a fantastic experience for me. Before Dark Souls, there was Demon's Souls. And before Demon's Souls, there was the King's Field series, which started with a trilogy on the original PlayStation. Honestly, I've never really played a King's Field game before, but I would really like to experience the game that Demon's Souls started development as. I could find a way to play it somehow, and I plan to, but it would be great if there was a remake trilogy, since the games are graphically really outdated. Since From Software are now game developers which are really well known for their good and challenging games, I can imagine that this would be quite successful. And I'm a huge fangirl of From Software, by the way. Miyazaki-san is my hero, seriously. Now we've reached the #1 game that really needs a remake. The game that I literally wait for the announcement of during E3 every single year. And that is... If you know me, then you already know that I'm the biggest Parasite Eve fan ever. The first 2 games are just my most desired PlayStation 1 remakes, and I'd take them over anything else any day. Everything about them is just perfect in my opinion. The gameplay, the battle system, the atmosphere, the monster design, the story, and most importantly, Aya Brea is golden perfect. Heck, even the sequel is perfect in its own way. It's a big waste that such a unique and well done franchise being thrown away like that again after one average game, which was deemed to failure when it was given to 2 men who had nothing to do with the first 2 games whatsoever. What I'd like to see in Parasite Eve 1 and 2 completely remade from scratch and given a more modern camera system with voice acting and some character redesigns, and if I were the devs, I'd even give Parasite Eve 2 a more similar battle system to the first game. Then after that, I'd like to see a proper Parasite Eve 3 that renders the third birthday non-canon. I'm even fine with a sequel to that, even though I can't see how they could fix the story anymore, since the third birthday went all sci-fi and abandoned the detective theme of the first 2 games. There's really a big lack of good detective action games in the gaming industry, and Parasite Eve really used to fill that hole with its stellar protagonist and unique enemy design. For a long time now, every year as E3 approaches, I start praying for a new Parasite Eve game to be revealed, but Square Enix just disappoints me with more boring Final Fantasy spin-offs and sequels with bad stories. I can still hope after seeing the Aya Brea poster that was hidden in the first Final Fantasy VII Remake trailer. It has to mean something, am I right? So guys, that's it for this list. These are the games that I really want a remake of, for so many reasons, as I mentioned earlier. And of course, we all have different opinions and we haven't played the same games for sure. So share with me in the comments, what do you think, and which games do you really like to see as a remake? As usual, I'd love to hear all your thoughts and opinions. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you still haven't done that. And I'll see you next time. Peace!